The Eden Project is probably one of the best, well-organised, superb places to study the environment. It's a little bit like taking the children around the world in a day. They actually see, feel, hear and immerse themselves in the ever-changing world in which we live.
The first thing for the children is the sensory experience of being in the tropical rainforest. They get hot, they get bothered. It's as real as you're going to get without going there. The sense of size, the heat, the smell, the atmosphere. It's pretty good.
Eden's unique as an educational resource because it's real. You can take children around the world in a day. You can take them to the rainforest, you can take them to the Mediterranean, you can take them to their own environments as well. It's not just individual plants with labels and lots of signage boards, it's actually immersing people in a real environment. You can see a cocoa small holding with cocoa pods growing on trees and actually get to touch them and look inside and relate it to the chocolate that you eat.
By visiting the Eden Project, the students are taking the first step in appreciating the interdependency of plants and animals and how much we need to preserve the habitats around the world in order to supply the oxygen and keep this whole world alive.
The Don't Forget Your Leach Socks workshop is for older Key Stage 2 children. It looks at basically how we're dependent on plants through a narrative that's about surviving in the tropical rainforest. Are they life-threatening leeches? No. Leach socks are very stylish pieces of equipment that you wear over your shoes and the bottom of your trouser legs. They're like kind of large Christmas stockings with a string round the tops. Stylish. How cool are they going to be? Brilliant. Have a look at these plants and think about how you could use them for food, water and shelter. A tent peg? Good idea.
Lighting a fire somewhere.
Firelight, a very good idea. After they've practiced with some real plants and things in the education centre, they head off to the tropical rainforest to go and seek out useful plants. And does anybody recognise this plant?
Is it banana?
Well done, it's a banana plant. So this one would be good for food and water and shelter, wouldn't it?
Can be what? Eaten.
A lot of kids think plants are boring, they don't move, they don't do very much. I've spoken to so many children over the years and you say, what's photosynthesis? And they go, carbon dioxide and sugar and get it all mixed up. And there's this basic concept that what children don't learn from the age dot is that plants keep them alive. Plants produce our oxygen, they provide our clothes, they provide our food, they provide our fuel, they provide our shelter. And as well as that, they do things like control global warming.
One particular child in the class, he doesn't appear to enjoy school and kind of in English and maths lessons he switches off. When we actually got there yesterday, I was so surprised at the amount of interaction he had with the guide and the actual things he knew. So it's obviously something that really inspired him.
Our objectives in the broadest terms are to change the world, really. Eden Project isn't about saying, oh, isn't the environmental crisis all terrible and we're all doomed. We want to show people how we're connected to the wider world, both the natural world and the people in the wider world.
Children learn best if they can experience something firsthand, and they can take this back to the classroom and reflect on a real situation, not an imaginary one. So when you are discussing the desert, savannah, rainforest, oceans, they will have been there and seen for themselves. From my past experience, I have insisted on pre-site visits, and sometimes these have had to take place in my own time, but I felt them to be an essential part of fully preparing myself so that I can lead a group when we're out of school, particularly when we're going to a residential place or to somewhere that is potentially hazardous, such as into this cavern.
So is this the first meeting point where we'll be standing with the children, gathering here, and you'll have a talk to them?
If I wasn't happy after doing this recce with any of the aspects of the trip, I would obviously think about what aspects could be changed.
On a pre-site visit, you are looking at potential hazards and risks, as well as the facilities, but it's also crucially important to make sure that what the staff are offering is what you want from the trip. And during that pre-site visit, you can actually negotiate and bespoke your trip to match the needs and ability of the students you'll be taking.
There's no danger to... It's not
nothing toxic.
toxic or anything, is it?
Poisonous here, no, it's mineral water and calcium.
I'm actually very satisfied with everything that I've seen. The guide has answered a lot of my questions. I've got no concerns at all about bringing 26, 7, 8-year-olds to the Blue John Caverns. The caves are just a massive chambers and caverns which the children will be led round and given a tour guide and just said how they're made, any interesting features about the caverns.
It's not topping! This is called topping. It's not topping!
I think the better prepared you are for a school visit, the more relaxed you are, or seemingly relaxed, on the day. You know that you've prepared for as many eventualities as you can think of, and you can just go with the students and enjoy the day. It does them good to see you out of context, enjoying yourself as much as they are.
Scary to think. A lot, especially when you're 6, yeah, definitely. Does this cavern have a particular name?
It's called the crystallised cavern.
The stalactites come down and the stalagmites grow up. So those stalactites, they hang down from the roof and they're 50,000 years old.
Yeah.
So far, brilliant. The children are absolutely taken aback by it all. A bit hesitant at first, a bit nervous, but they were absolutely fine once we got into the cave, and they're full of questions and very good indeed. What have you got to say, children, for questions?
Yes, thank you for having a look down.
The whole experience for them were, I think they just enjoyed it from the moment they stepped into the caves to the moment they came out.
Trips can be very, very expensive and time-consuming in terms of travel. And if you have got something like Spitalfield Farm, which is within walking distance of the school, then that is an excellent resource.
It's always a concern when you take the children out onto the streets. Road safety is one of the biggest issues, especially when you're, for example, I'm at the front of the line and the end of the line's way down there. You do have to be careful. You have to make sure you have responsible adults who can go along with you.
They're really shy, aren't they?
Growing schools emerged out of a concern that children and young people don't understand where their food comes from, or how it's produced, or how it arrives in the supermarkets. And also there's a general lack of understanding and awareness about healthy living, what constitutes a healthy diet, and where food that children eat in schools comes from.
It's very interesting, actually. Don't have a lot of knowledge about where their food comes from, and so it's quite interesting for them to see, just the fact that quite a few of the foods that you eat come from plants and they grow in the ground.
Do you know why they're here?
No.
Well, what we do is we keep them so that they become really, really, really ripe and they turn into seeds. So all the seeds grow inside them, and then we use the seeds to plant them next year.
There are a lot of places in cities, in inner cities, that schools can actually go and visit that perhaps schools aren't aware of. The Federation of City Farms has schools throughout many of the inner city conurbations throughout the UK. I think schools need to be made aware that these places exist.
Oh, I like the chilies. I'm going to cross.
It's part of our role as teachers to not only prepare for a trip so that the students have got high expectations and clear expectations of what they should be doing, but once they've had their senses awakened and they're coming back from a trip buzzing with ideas and enthusiasm, we've got to capitalise on that and use it. And that can be done in many cross-curricular ways.
They're always keen to talk about it, which is quite good in class. They're also keen to write about it or to do activities following up, because it's something that's very vivid in their minds.
For a special treat, because you've all been so good, I'm going to take you to see the rabbits.
Going to a farm, obviously there is the benefits of seeing and experiencing animals that you don't normally experience within a city. and letting them touch them and be involved with them. Also, it just gives them that knowledge and direct sort of experience rather than seeing them on a TV or in a book. I mean, just even the thing like today when the smell of the manure. I mean, you can talk about it and you can show them pictures and tell them that they use manure to fertilise plants, but actually experiencing it's really beneficial.
This is a trip to the National Arboretum at Westonbirt. It's really excellent. It's demystifying maths in a very practical and different way.
The Arboretum started in around 1829, started by a gentleman called Robert Holford, who owned the very large house across the road. Basically, Jenny proposed the idea of having a numeracy trail, and we worked on that. We took a walk round and sort of using my knowledge of the Arboretum and hers of numeracy, we came up with an idea of a range of different worksheets that can be done. And then Jenny worked on some and I worked on some, and basically it was taken from there.
OK, we've arrived in Lime Avenue. Tell me what you can see. Have a look. Look that way, look up this way. What can you see? We're calculating the distances between trees so that we can go back and make some bar charts. Have a look. Let's see if we can count how many trees. You see the autumn tree over to the right there? That's where we came in. So we're going to number all of these trees to make sure that we know which trees we're counting, which ones we're talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've used it 2 or 3 times already, and I'm sure there'll be lots of schools around the area and indeed further afield who, once they know about it, will see the benefit. There's a huge amount of numeracy work that we can do here.
We're working on their estimation skills, so they're making estimates at distances between trees, both across the avenue and between different trees along the avenue.
13, 16. Okay, what are we going to write down then? We've got a 14.
They're estimating in strides and in metres, and then checking by making strides and using a trundle wheel.
It's fairly straightforward to set up a maths trail. It's not costly, particularly if you're using what you've got around you. I mean, that's all we've done, really.
Well, I think it's really nice that if you see a good idea and it works, you have a go at it yourself. So I think it's really important.
To run a trip, there are rules and regulations and risk assessment forms and the necessity of doing a pre-site visit where possible. However, that shouldn't cloud the enjoyment and the fun of running a trip away from the classroom to see the children really enjoying your subject and what they can achieve.